The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports. You are Locked On Hurricanes Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Miami on the Locked On Podcast Network.
A huge victory for the Miami Hurricanes, and how about this? I am just going to say this before I hit that element right now and really get the show cranking into high gear. Carson Beck got it done. I've said it all year. I've been really hard on this kid, and I've been hard on Dawson. More on that later. Really hard on Carson Beck, but I said to Alex Donno, you saw it today. If you watched the pre-show, I said he had it in him to make the big plays to win the game. And as he's missing deep ball after deep ball and then taking sack after sack, I started to wonder if he ever had it in him. But man, did he deliver late in his signature game as a Hurricane. And let's not forget, same guy who beat Notre Dame late in the game, and that win ended up keeping the Irish out and put us in. So take away Louisville and SMU. An immaculate year for Carson Beck, but he went from elite game manager to elite playmaker tonight, and that was something Alex and I talked about in the pre-show. It's Greece, it's the postcast. What a win for the Miami Hurricanes. We are live on YouTube on the Number One Sports Podcast Network, and then after the show, we upload Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Stitcher, Podbean, and you down with OPP? Hell no. You see these whiskers? No, it's OTT. It's over-the-top television with Roku. It is your Canes postcast. We are just getting started. How about those big-time players making big-time plays in the big-time game?
This is what you'll be talking about.
We're talking about playing for a national championship, and with that, we're bringing in my boy and yours, the one, the only, Alex Donno, baby. We were texting the whole night, Alex, and, we did that pre-show. Early on, this looked like a complete domination for Miami. They could not touch our run game. They could not move the ball on us. They could not convert a third down. They had run 8 plays late in the second quarter, and they still hung around. Credit to Ole Miss, hanging around. They got the big run from Lacey, but early Miami dominating on the line of scrimmage, just the way they've done throughout this playoff run, Alex. It got hairy, it got dicey, it got close. The penalties were killing us again. Dropped interceptions. This could have been a blowout. Could have had 2 pick sixes. Missed deep balls early, but late in the game, when plays had to be made, it was that much maligned offense lifting the defense to a win for a change.
Man, I'm so happy. I was nearly in tears when that game ended. And even after Carson Beck scores the go-ahead touchdown, we still had to sweat out that final Ole Miss possession. Are they going to hit a Hail Mary? So the cardiac Canes in true fashion. And, Greece, it ended up being a super close game. And like you said, credit to Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss has been defying the odds all postseason long. I mean, their head coach left them high and dry right before the playoffs. He's trying to tamper with their roster. He's bringing assistant coaches with him. And when Ole Miss took their go-ahead touchdown and the 2-point conversion to go up 3, I mean, we were sweating. We had the heart palpitations. And, Miami's defense at that point, they were beat up. You had a bunch of guys who left the game injured. You had one of your starting corners was already injured. Your other starting corner gets kicked out of the game for what I thought was a bogus targeting call. So Miami's defense was basically being held together by duct tape, and you put the ball in the hands of your offense with just over 2 minutes. The last thing that I wanted, I mean, obviously anything's better than losing in regulation, but I did not want to go back to overtime in the desert. Like I didn't want to relive that Fiesta Bowl, the previous Fiesta Bowl experience.
And the Fiesta Bowl hasn't been great for us, man, over the years. The 86 title game, the bloodbath against Arizona and Ray Lewis's freshman year, the Ohio State game, 2 of those games in the national title game. But Alex, tonight, Carson Beck made sure that wasn't going to happen. In the face of relentless pressure, the offensive line let him down. Penalties, pre-snap penalties. Big boys got tired up front. Beck was running for his life the entire second half, and he comes out, Alex Donno, 15 plays, 75 yards, 2 minutes, 55 seconds, and he runs it in. His first rushing touchdown since the South Florida game. He runs it in. This is after he hits Malachi Toney for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. This is after big throw after big throw to Keelan Marion on that drive. And nice to see Marion have his best game as a Hurricane tonight with 7 catches for $114 and a touchdown. But Carson Beck late not only does he run it in, Alex, but he engineers the drive. He hits the deep touchdown. Then he hits Tony for another touchdown. And then he runs it in to put the exclamation point on the victory. So what an ending. He's not done yet. Still got one more at home for Carson Beck. But for a guy who's taken so much heat all year long, and rightfully and deservedly so at times, man, did he come up big tonight when it mattered the absolute most.
And I love the way he's been running in the playoffs, Grease. I mean, we saw him, lower his head in the Ohio State game when he needed to pick up 12 yards on a third down, and he did it. And then this time around, like the awareness for him to see that he had all that space on the left side of the field and to be able to run in for that touchdown. Like I'm so happy for Carson Beck. I was listening to some of the, the post-game interviews that they were doing there in the stadium right after. And, some of Beck's teammates were talking about, hey, people said all this nonsense about Beck, but he's done all of his talking on the field. Like he's never come out in the media and defended himself or complained about, people dogging him and acting like he's not a good leader or not a good quarterback. And, to see him now 60 minutes away from a national championship and 11 days away from being able to play a national title game in your home stadium. I'm so happy for him. You mentioned Keelan Marion with the big game. Miami's ground attack, they did what they were supposed to do against that Ole Miss defense. Miami rushes for 191 yards.
They were
in this game.
Fletcher and Marty Brown were unbelievable, bro. Fletcher's a man-possessed, best player on the field. And I look, I'm not going to be negative. I know there's some things to clean up. We'll get to that.
I mean, you can't be. Let's enjoy this moment. Like, don't let's enjoy this.
Plenty of time, Alex, for you all week long to get into what happened in the title game.
Right.
I want to talk about 28 first downs for Miami, 459 yards of offense, 191 on the ground, 41 minutes time of possession. And if it weren't for the 10 penalties for 74 yards, the 2 dropped pick sixes and 4 dropped interceptions, the penalties, the dropped interceptions, the lack of sacks and real quarterback pressure. Chambliss did a great job. Really impressed with him, his heart, his guts tonight. Look, Alex, that's a hell of a team, bro. I want to give props. Miss, they lose their coach. You mentioned it, but those kids, man, they have a lifetime of memories, and they're hanging their heads right now, but they can hold those heads high after the performance that they put on in these playoffs. But ever since, this is not the Ole Miss postcast, Alex, this is the Canes postcast. Ever since that loss, okay, you think of that loss to SMU, and you think of what they've done since then. 7 wins in a row, including at number 22 Pittsburgh, at Texas A&M on the road at the time. What were they, number 12 at the time? On the road. Then neutral site, Ohio State number 2, now neutral site, Ole Miss number 6. So none of those wins coming at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How battle-tested can you be when every game's been a playoff game since that second loss, and you've gone on the road and gone to neutral sites and beaten the teams you've beaten consecutively? This team has to feel pretty much like it's a team of destiny right about now.
Yeah, this team is so dialed in, and I want to, and let me turn the negatives from the game into a positive, because how good does it feel with all of the blown opportunities and all of some of these penalties were crappy officiating, and also some legitimate dumb penalties, and also crappy officiating, and you still win the game. Like, I mean, that to me, Miami played probably their best football in the Ohio State game. We know that they're capable of doing that. So, I know whoever wins the other semifinal tomorrow is probably going to be a slight favorite against Miami, but I give the Hurricanes a chance to beat either of these teams, whether it's Indiana or whether it's Oregon. How fun would it be to play Oregon with all the Mario Cristobal storylines?
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Never played them in a big game with as much success as the two programs have had. Indiana, too, though. Either one, it'll be a new opponent, a fresh opponent, and anything. It sounds silly to say it, Alex, but any thoughts of a letdown after that Ohio State game when you play a game like that against an opponent like that and you play the way they did? Credit to the coaches for having them ready to play and coming out on fire. Ole Miss wins the snap. They think they're going to take the ball first, take control of the game, set the pace, set the flow. They want to run 90 plays on offense. We were the ones ran 88 plays on offense tonight, Alex, and so completely took the ball out of the hands of that high-powered offense all night long. And I thought Miami could have done a lot more and had a bigger lead and not made us sweat so much. But you mentioned it, the plays that were made to win the game. Malachi Toney with the plays that he made, turning and breaking tackles 3 times in this game where he catches the ball and he's short of a first down and he's breaking tackles to get there, or the way he followed his blockers through that seam on the touchdown from Beck. And Beck delivering the ball, distributing it to so many different guys, but Tony making the plays when he had to, Beck making the plays. I said it, Alex, in the intro. Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. That's been a cornerstone for the Miami Hurricanes every time we've won. Tonight, no different. We're playing with freshmen out there. DBs, our corners are out. And I want to say one more thing to you because it didn't count. I thought the toe hit, by the way. I want to see more replays, and I don't think they should have overturned that. But that one-handed catch going back across his body by Malachi Toney running are you kidding me? I mean, that's up there with Odell Beckham Jr., man, for the best catch of all time. And it didn't count.
And the other thing about Tony, he had so many big blocks in the run game.
He sure did.
A kid, I mean, he should still be in high. Like, I don't want to call him a kid because he's 18, he's a grown man, but he should still literally be in high school right now. He enrolled a year early. And I'll leave you with this because I got to run back to WQAM post game in a second. I just I want to send Grease, like, obviously congratulations to Miami's team, coaches, players, everybody on down, but I want to congratulate you. I want to congratulate myself. I mean, we've been through so many tough years. We've been through so many disappointing seasons, and obviously there's still work to do. We got one more game to win, but to be at this point, to actually get to the national title game when a little over a month ago we weren't sure if we were even going to get into the playoff. I want to congratulate all the Miami fans, all the everydayers that are in the comments. Like,
the everydayer club.
Suffered. Yeah, I mean, three years ago, this team goes 5-7. Like, we were, some years we're in purgatory, some years we're in hell, and now we're on our way to heaven in the national championship game. So I just want to send a huge shout out to all the Canes family and the Miami Hurricanes nation. We've been through a lot, and we deserve this. And you deserve it, Grease. I deserve it. We all deserve this, man. And thank you so much for the time here. And crush the rest of this postcast, man. I know you will.
And most importantly, they won when you were back on U.S. soil. You didn't have to fly back like we talked about yesterday.
If I was still in Italy, Miami would have won by 50. So, I mean,
50. But let me just say one thing before you go, Alex. Be on QAM. Nobody bleeds orange and green like you do, bro. You have built this channel. I worked with you 100 years ago at 790 The Ticket. You were wearing Miami stuff every week then, and you're still
so were you.
Yeah, I mean, we had hair back then. It might be a little biased. Looking now, but I just want to say what a joy it is to share this with you, but also
thank you
to be a part of this channel and to ride your coattails with all this audience that you've built on Locked On Canes, man. It's a special ride, but we all of us in here, the everydayers, the newbies, everyone, myself, we owe this to you. So great job with the channel, and keep it up, brother.
Well, thank you. God bless you, man, and thank you for all the hard work. And let's go Canes. We'll see you soon, Grease.
All right, Alex Dono, the man right there. That's the guy who built this channel. You know what I mean? Who I trust? Me. That's who. Who put this thing together, huh? Me. That's who. That's who. Tony Montana. That's a terrible Tony Montana. I should be ashamed and embarrassed to that. But I'm not ashamed and embarrassed to be wearing my Devin Hester jersey, and I'm not ashamed and embarrassed to be a WVUM, University of Miami alum, and I am not ashamed and embarrassed because it's great to be a Miami Hurricane. We're going back to the chip. We pick up on that on the other side. We're going to give you the numbers from this game. We're going to take you through the drives, the plays. How about 2 13-play drives and 2 15-play drives for the Miami offense tonight? Would have loved to have seen them have a bigger lead and not make us sweat so much, man. But when they needed to, the offense won this game for them. We've been talking so much about the defense, won it for them against Texas A&M. We've been talking so much about the defense, won it for them against Ohio State. We've been talking so much, deservedly so, about that defense. And by the way, if Ruben Bain gets held one more time, you know what I mean? I mean, he could join a cuddle club and not get held as much as he did tonight. It was ridiculous, Ruben Bain. And then Mesidor, too, and luckily he didn't get hurt with it. He fell on his arm. But what a win for Miami. We're going to give you the numbers. We're going to look ahead to the national championship game. Now, Indiana's unbelievable with Curt Cignetti, right? The former Alabama assistant, Mario Cristobal, the former Alabama assistant. Oregon's a really good team. That game, Oregon and Indiana, the first meeting between the two teams was 20-20 in the fourth quarter. Ended up being 30-20. Indiana on the road at Oregon. So tough to beat a team twice. But can you believe Miami's never played Oregon in a very meaningful game, given the success all these years of these programs? It never happened back when Oregon started getting good. It's happening maybe now. And then, of course, Indiana. Haven't played them in a big game either. That's a basketball school, man. That's Bobby Knight and Isaiah Thomas and Steve Alford. You know what I mean? That's what it is at Indiana. But man, Cignetti and Mendoza, the Miami kid. So we'll have all eyes glued to that tomorrow night. Man, what a week. Mike McDaniel fired by the Dolphins, who finished up their season, and maybe now they get John Harbaugh. And I host the Dolphin Squad Show with Jeff Scanina and, of course, Kyle Krabs. And then here with Alex, Locked on Canes, and soon to be the Cane Squad Show. Man, oh man, what a win. What a game. I have permission to go long tonight, man. I'll do this all night. Let's party, Miami. Let's party. University of Miami Hurricanes. The U, baby. The U is back in the chip at home at Hard Rock Stadium. A lot of history playing for titles and winning them in Miami for the Hurricanes. Can you imagine the stadium that night, the alumni there, the crowd? I've been in those environments, man, at the old Orange Bowl. Got to turn the Rock into the OB.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Ole Miss's season comes to the end in the Fiesta Bowl.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels.
Miami is a 3.5-point favorite all week. Miami won by 4 points. Vegas is really good at what they do. All right, so let's talk about this game. Like I said, there's probably two conversations that need to be had about this game. First off, Ole Miss started unbelievably slow, like only 7 plays in the first quarter. They had missed tackles and blown assignments, and the worst of the Ole Miss defense appeared in the first half of the game. And the fact that Miami was only ahead 17-13 should have given everybody the level of hope that they had, honestly. The second half, Ole Miss's offense started to move and started to work, and Trinidad Chambliss, he's simply the best player in college football. Period. If he gets his waiver, Ole Miss is going to be a top 5 team in 2026. There's not much going on. It's going to be a harder schedule, but this is a good team. But they were able to pick it out, and he almost had nearly 300 yards passing after going in the first half for like 60 or something like that. So Trinidad Chambliss had a pretty good game in the second half of the game. But the problem that Ole Miss had was not the Miami defensive line, because that's what everybody heard about, is how good the Miami defensive line is. Ruben Bain and Mesdor and all those guys. And like I said, good defense. They are a really good defense. We talked about that all week. The problem was the offensive line for Ole Miss tonight. And where Miami had the advantage was amongst the offensive line against the Ole Miss defensive line. It was going to be an extremely physical game, and Miami took advantage of that. I thought that at the end of the game, when Ole Miss had the 27-24 lead, that Carson Beck was going to have to throw the ball down the field, and Ole Miss had a chance to get home. But at that point, and this is the sad part, at that point, Ole Miss was 90 plays in on defense by the time Carson Beck ran in, and they were just worn out. It was like gut punch after gut punch after gut punch, and credit to Miami for doing that and sticking with that. But the reality is, a missed tackle by one of Ole Miss's best defensive player gave Miami 4 points in the game. That gave them 4 points. A busted coverage gave them a walk-in touchdown in the first half. Ole Miss beat themselves. Miami didn't beat them despite how they did offensively and all that. Now, Miami won the game, and they get the home national championship game, but Ole Miss proved it belonged at this level. And they played really well, and it worked. And I hate the chaos, in my opinion. The chaos was it caused the slow start. there wasn't the script like there normally is with an Ole Miss offense. Once Ole Miss kind of zeroed in on what they were doing, it turned into normally calling a ball game, and now all of a sudden you can go muscle memory by doing that. But the script, the early part, whenever Ole Miss has a statement of intent, normally at the beginning of the game, it wasn't there. And I blame the chaos for that, the transfer portal, the LSU, all of that stuff. Now it's finally behind us. It is finally behind Ole Miss, and one positive for that is the Ole Miss transfer portal doesn't get extended past the 15th. So we'll see exactly how that looks. I do expect a couple of players to get into the transfer portal, but I don't think it's going to be anything like what we thought it might have been like a month ago, essentially. But listen, it was a great football game. It was an epic, classic football game. 2 in a row that Ole Miss has played. 3 playoff games Ole Miss has played. That's ahead of most everybody. Pete Golding is tied for 3rd in the SEC history in playoff wins. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can take away from this season. This Ole Miss football team completely balled out all year. They were the best team in the Southeastern Conference. I don't think it was particularly close. They had one bad quarter in Sanford Stadium, and then the SEC tiebreakers took over, and that's the reason Ole Miss didn't play in Atlanta. But if you look at this game, you can see how Ole Miss shot themselves in the foot. When you look at this game and how Ole Miss reacted, you should walk out of that with a lot of pride. Because like I said, once there was a problem in the first half, and there was a problem in the first half when you saw it defensively. And I said all week, if Miami runs for over 150 yards, they're going to win the game. They ran for 191. We'll go over the box score in just a second. But offense-wise, they did a good job. Over 40 minutes of time of possession. Now, I'm not a big time of possession hawk because until 30 seconds to go in the game, Ole Miss was leading the game. So I'm not really going to play the time of possession thing with anybody. And anybody that talks about that, I'll just roll my eyes and keep going. The play that Carson Beck ran in was a great call. It was man coverage. You ran people off of that. You basically got him on the ground or he was able to run into the end zone. So it was a great play call by them. Ole Miss, defensively, they're going to be fine. They are. Today, they got out physical. You know, you always talk about the Georgia tax that you have to play. That Ole Miss Georgia game was a war. It was. And it is hard to bounce back the next week from doing that. And this was a short turnaround from that to this. Miami had an extra day of preparation and all of that going on. So you had to deal with the Georgia tax on top of everything else. But that being said, Ole Miss made plays and got back in the game. Daquan Wright was a weapon. He should have been used earlier if that was honest. And the Ole Miss offensive line played pretty well. Miami's defense is really good. But once the offense kind of got their footing, that fourth quarter happened. And I genuinely thought that Ole Miss was going to win that game all the way up until the point where they didn't. Heck, the last play of the game was brutal pass interference. Now, granted, they're never going to call that, but good gosh, horrible pass interference. But a bust, a missed tackle, that's why you lost the game, not because of what happened in the fourth quarter, Carson Beck scoring a touchdown or the Hail Mary at the end, the pass interference and all that. That is why you lost, not because of anything else. It was on you. Ole Miss lost this game. They didn't get beat. Now, Miami won the game. Not saying they didn't, but missed tackles, double-digit missed tackles by Ole Miss in the first half, and that busted coverage was almost inexcusable.
After much speculation, Mike McDaniel is out as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast.
Mike McDaniel is out. Let's start there. This is not a drill. The Dolphins have elected to make a change. Stephen Ross has already released a statement. Reportedly, they met this morning. Mike McDaniel was informed the staff. And there's a lot of layers that go into a decision like this. And you knew that this was going to be a hard decision for Stephen Ross because it had been reported all the way back in October. They want it to work. They want it to work. They want Mike McDaniel to have the chance to keep the team playing hard for him. They want to find excuses, really, to keep Mike McDaniel. I think this is the right decision. And I want to be respectful of Mike McDaniel, right? Like, Mike McDaniel came to Miami and gave his absolute best for 4 years. The product was not where it needed to be, and the product regressed in alarming ways. Do I think in an alternative reality, Mike McDaniel would be successful in Miami? Maybe. Do I think there are some consistent issues across all 4 years that make it alarming to think that the tide is going to change? And when you do an evaluation and when the timing lines up with we're doing a general manager change, it just feels like the appropriate thing to do. I don't want it to get lost that somebody and somebodies are going to be out of work and need to find new opportunities, right? So you won't catch me on here celebrating Mike McDaniel being dismissed. But I think it's the right decision. And as a fan of the team, I think this is a cause for optimism with what comes next for the Dolphins. Because since Stephen Ross has bought this franchise, there has not been a single example of a full organizational reset, right? When you consider Stephen Ross buys the team, 50% of the team in 2008, and then 2009 buys the other 98% of the franchise, right? Tony Sparano was already in place. Jeff Ireland was already in place. Bill Parcells left. And Tony and Jeff fight. And then Jeff stays on, and we dismiss Tony after we made flirtations with Jim Harbaugh. And then Joe Philbin stays, and Jeff Ireland's out. And then we try to hire a GM to pair with Joe Philbin, and they have a hard time finding a candidate. So then they hire Dennis Hickey, and then they promote Chris Grier from within in 2016, but they bring Mike Tannenbaum in to work alongside / above Chris Grier, and then they move on from Joe Philbin, and they hire Adam Gase, and then closest they got is 2019 when they got rid of Adam Gase, and they moved on from Tannenbaum, but Grier was the GM by title before that anyway. And he'd been with the organization for 25 years. So let's not forget, when the Dolphins dismissed Chris Grier, the following week, they also ousted the top 2 scouts, the head of pro scouting and the head of college scouting. Now you have a coach change that is in on top of this. And that's what comes to the statement that I read from Stephen Ross that I want to have up here. After careful evaluation and extensive discussion since the season ended, I have made the decision that our organization is in need of comprehensive change. I informed Mike McDaniel this morning that he has been relieved of his duty as head coach. I love Mike and want to thank him for his hard work, commitment, and energy he brought to our organization. Mike is an incredibly creative football mind whose passion for the game and his players was evident every day. I wish him and his family the best moving forward. The acceptance that this was necessary, I think, is the thing that I'm most, as a fan, excited about. Because everybody remember it. Well, I'm old enough to remember 3 days ago when the Dolphins put out their request for GM candidates to interview. And 3 of them were from San Francisco. And everybody leapt to that assumption, right? Oh, they're loading the deck in favor of Mike McDaniel with the GM candidates. They're just going to hire whoever they like best from San Francisco because he's used to working with Mike, and Mike's going to be insulated, because that is what, for the last 15 years, Dolphins fans have been bred to assume this organization is going to do when it comes time to make change. There's a whoopee, if you will, right? Like, I got 2 kids under 5. My son doesn't have whoopies. My daughter had a whoopee. And when we had our second, it was, all right, like, let's try to be conscious of not having the comfort blanket that we hold on to until we're 4, right? And my son's 2, and we got him off the whoopee already, right? There's a conscious decision to change instead of doing the same thing over and over again. And the analogy here is, for a lot of Stephen Ross's tenure of the team, there's been a comfort person, somebody that he liked, that we want to change, but I really like this and I want to hold on to it and I don't want to move on from this. It's what's going to make me feel good about what is going to come. And when you do that and your organization is not aligned, you've got a coach in this hypothetical, say you hire somebody else. You got a GM that comes in, you either retrofit him to Mike McDaniel, or you bring somebody else in to serve as the check and balance to Mike McDaniel. But Mike's going to come into 2026 feeling the pressure to win. He's been on the hot seat the last 2 years and had 2 straight losing seasons. That GM understands, I've got time. I just got hired. I'm doing the long-term game. Look how that worked for Las Vegas this year, right? Because Las Vegas, they brought everybody in at the same time, but they were still people on dramatically different timelines. John Spytek, Tom Brady brought in to be the GM of the team. He played college football at Michigan with Tom. You think he's pressed about the first year? Who'd they hire as their coach? Pete Carroll, who instantaneously, the moment he put pen to paper, was the oldest head coach in the league. You think Pete's going to wait around? And Pete's going to take his sweet time and take 4 years to build a roster when he's 74? It wasn't aligned, and it created conflict. And what did the Raiders do with their first-round pick? They took Ashton Genty, a running back. You know who didn't play particularly efficiently, no matter how physically talented he is? Ashton Genty, a running back in the top 10, because that's a win-now type move to draft a running back that early, right? Those are the kind of pitfalls you were worried about Miami falling into if they did not have the conviction to look themselves in the mirror and say, we need to change. They did it. That should be applauded. That is a huge development for the Dolphins and their outlook as a franchise. That doesn't mean the forecast for 2026 is going to look any rosier, right? But I think it opens the door for these general manager candidates that the Dolphins are having in these. The in-persons started today. We'll talk a little bit more about that process on the other side of a quick break. There's a ton of you who are watching live on YouTube. This is going to go out to the podcast feed on Locked On Dolphins. I appreciate each and every one of you guys checking out the show. This is obviously a monumental day for the future of the Dolphins. This is obviously a monumental moment for Stephen Ross's tenure as the owner of the team, that this kind of move was accepted as necessary.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
We're getting you so outrageously ready for the Peach Bowl.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Oregon, Indiana, finally here. I want to start with a vibe check in Hoosier country, because I can tell you on the Oregon side of things, maybe I'm just psyching myself out, underestimating Dan Lanning, talking myself into a spiral and all that. But when I'm looking at 2 coordinators that have taken head coaching jobs and have to divert at least part of the time, they've said all the right things publicly for sure this week, that, you know, they're very committed. And I think there is definitely a good chance that they mean that. I just cannot in any reasonable sense think, yeah, you're putting 100% of your time into this game. It can't I
You
don't think
physically can't. It's
Yeah.
physically impossible.
Yeah, you
cannot
physically
give
can't.
100% to two different jobs.
No.
You can't do it.
Yeah, the calendar is really dumb. Jordan Davison is out. Jay Harris is apparently available to play as the number 3 running back. He had 1 carry, was stopped on a 4th and short in the first matchup. That leaves Noah Whittington, the veteran, who's kind of an Indiana type, not a super highly recruited guy, 6th year of college football this season, and De'Aaron Hill, the true freshman. That's, of course, at the opposite end of the spectrum. So, frankly, in my head goings, I'm kind of sitting here going, man, I don't love the vibes going into this game. Oregon went into the 2014 national championship against Ohio State, down a key player. Darren Carrington was their best receiver, and they struggled with drops and lost the game. How are the Hoosiers feeling going into the Peach Bowl?
I think both of our fan bases and probably both of our teams and both of your podcast hosts are feeling opposite of what the first matchup was, because Indiana going on the road, we were excited, right? We were excited, and I felt like Indiana could win that game, and I think I picked against Indiana because we just hadn't seen that yet against that level of a team on the road with all the hype and everything, right? And Oregon was, yeah, we got this. We're the better team. We're going to get this done. It's at home, right? It never rains at Autzen, and Dan Lanning doesn't lose at Autzen. That was kind of the mentality, right? And then Indiana wins the football game. Here we are in round 2, part 2 of this rematch, and it seems like it's the opposite. Indiana's the number 1 team in the country. They just whooped Alabama and embarrassed them on national TV in the Rose Bowl, and now Indiana feels like they can't be stopped and that they're on their way to win a national championship. And Oregon is in the boat, kind of like you talked about, of, man, we've got some injuries and we're just not feeling it. The vibe isn't there. It's a long road trip, right? Cross country for the Ducks. And it just feels like the vibes have completely flipped from the first time to the second time. And the coordinator thing is such a good point that you bring up, because that has to have some sort of an impact. I don't know what, and it probably can't even be quantified, but it will have an impact because Oregon's coordinators are leaving, like you mentioned, for head coaching jobs. Indiana's coordinators just signed contract extensions where Bryant Haynes is making almost $3 million and Shanahan's making almost $2 million. That has to have some sort of a factor in a play here. And so does that mean that the result will be flipped? I sure hope not. But it is fascinating to see the different vibes. And Hoosier fans are as confident as they've ever been, man. They think they could beat the Cleveland Browns if they got on the same field right now.
I mean, that's the kind of football they've been playing. Ohio State was darn good, incredibly talented, and they suffered the curse of the bye, I guess, after Indiana beat them in the Big Ten championship game. But that the Hoosiers were able to overcome that, and Oregon fans went through it last year with the Ohio State thing, and bye teams are 1-7 in the college football playoff. I don't think when the new format gets debated, discussed, and ultimately announced for next season, I don't think you're going to have those long layoffs, which could be a good thing for college football. It might result in expanding the playoff to 16 teams, which, you know, I'm not having that conversation.
Anti-expansionist.
I am an anti-expansionist. I think 12 is too many, but you know what? That's just me, and I've got a different philosophy on that. We'll keep it here on this game, though, and the quarterback battle in this one's interesting because Fernando Mendoza, if he wanted to, could come back, right?
I am speaking that into existence. It's not going to happen, but he could from an eligibility standpoint.
Right, and so too could Dante Moore. And Dante Moore's been the one flying up Mel Kiper's big board. I wish Mel Kiper would go on vacation or something, but he's the one that has kind of flown up the big board here. And yet I feel like Mendoza's fate of going to the NFL is far more sealed because Indiana's added Josh Hoover. Oregon hasn't added a transfer quarterback. And I think not just a chance to go play for a national championship, a chance to win your first ever title as a football program is on the line for Oregon, but Dante Moore's future could be on the line. Will this be the last game that he plays? I think if they win, obviously the answer is no, but the next game, if they win that one, could be the last one he plays. But I think the upside, if Oregon's not able to come back and get it done in this game, because of how I think it'll look, especially, I think you'll see Dante Moore come back because he's always had a very good head on his shoulders. He made a very mature veteran type decision to come to Oregon, sit for a year behind Dylan Gabriel, and then step into the starting role. And if Oregon loses this game, I'd suspect Goins, there will be some similarities to the first one, and he might realize, I'm not ready for the NFL just yet, and another year of college football would help me out.
And I think that's what we've seen from these two guys in their performances. Wouldn't you agree that Fernando Mendoza looks much more pro-ready than Dante Moore? I'm willing to make the argument that Dante Moore might have a higher ceiling in the NFL because of his athleticism and playmaking ability. But Fernando Mendoza, if you gave him a week to study a pro playbook, he could go play next week and I think would survive. Would he be great? Not off the rip. But you get what I'm saying is Fernando Mendoza is much more NFL ready than Dante Moore. So it's a fascinating point because I don't think it's a horrible idea for Dante Moore to come back and play another year of college football and be possibly the number 1 overall pick next year. But I'm also in belief that in sports, anything can happen at any given time. In life, anything can happen at any given time. And if you're projected a first round pick, much less a lottery pick, I think you got to go. I think you got to take that chance, go get paid, make your money, and do what you got to do to take care of you and your family. So in this game in particular, I do think it's an offensive struggle. I've said that all week long. I think it's a low-scoring game. I think defenses are having a great time in this one, and that means Dante Moore struggles, and maybe Fernando Mendoza does too, but I bet on the better quarterback right now, and that's Fernando Mendoza in my opinion.
That's an interesting question. Because I think the best game for Dante Moore looks better and is statistically better than the best game for Mendoza in this matchup. I think the worst game between the two is Dante Moore if he has a subpar performance. Does that make sense? Like Dante Moore, of the two, I think Moore is more likely to throw for 300 yards than Mendoza. That's not to say that I think it's really possible because I'm with you. And it's kind of crazy to talk about how you've got 2 future top 5 picks at quarterback in this game. Mm-hmm. And I actually don't think either team is going to get to 20 points. I've got my score prediction and I'll drop it later on the episode, of course. But I think that's a testament to the scheme that Bryant Haynes is running, the talent that they've got, and also the way this Oregon defense has been built and developed. And they have got so much talent all over the field. And, oh, by the way, they showed in the last game that they can make adjustments and improve from areas where they've struggled in the past. When they didn't do well against tempo at the end of last year, Texas Tech tried it, and they were ready for it immediately. And I think that what Oregon's defense has done, I've got so much confidence in that side of the ball. But I think it's more likely Oregon wins this game with defense and special teams than it is they win it with their offense, because I just trust Indiana's defense.
Yeah, and I know we got to get to break, and we'll talk more about this in the next segment, but I think the floors of these two quarterbacks is worse for Dante Moore, and that's worse for Oregon rather than Fernando Mendoza. What I mean by that is if Dante Moore has a mediocre to below average game, Oregon loses the football game. But if Fernando Mendoza has a mediocre to below average game, I still think Indiana can find ways to win because of the defense, because of running the football, which I know Oregon does as well, but injuries are stacking up for them. That's the difference for me. If both of these quarterbacks come out and light it up, then all bets are off and we'll see who wins, because I don't expect that to happen. But the quarterback matchup is just so intriguing to me.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, player coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
The first game of the NFL postseason features a rematch between the Panthers and the Rams.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's Panthers, it's Rams to open up the playoffs, 4:30 Eastern Time, 1:30 Pacific Time. Julian Council joined by Travis Rogers of Locked On Rams. Travis, I got to talk to Doug back in week 13. Happy to talk to you here in week 1 of the playoffs, which has been a while since Carolina's been in it. But of course, the Rams are very used to being at this stage of the season.
Yeah, it's funny when they were getting ready to go into Charlotte to play them a few weeks ago. I think that the Rams were hoping to skip this weekend altogether. They were kind of in a position to control their own fate going into the last chunk of the season. And had they taken care of their business, they would be home. Instead, Seattle's at home, and the Rams are playing a wild card game to a team that already beat them once this year. So it changes fast in this league, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And also had the Lions' proposal to have just the seeding be based off of record, had that gone on, it'd actually be LA as the 2 seed and Carolina as their 7 seed. So no matter what, where we were going to get this matchup here this weekend. But yeah, you're right, because I was pretty high on LA at that point in time. I felt like the Rams are very clearly the best team in the NFL. And then they lose to the Panthers, who have very much been up and down team and really are limping into the playoffs. But since then, it's been a weird season for them. Obviously, the biggest story is that both these teams are in the playoffs. But how's the mood there in LA heading into this game, knowing that I'm thinking there's probably a finite amount of time they feel like they have with Matthew Stafford in trying to go after yet another Lombardi trophy?
Yeah, I think the mood could probably be best described as cautious optimism. Going into Carolina the first time, I think that most Rams fans thought how you felt, Julian, which is, we have the best team. We have a quarterback that's playing at a high level. You've got weapons like Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Kyren Williams. You've got a defense that's got a megastar in Jared Verse. They're able to get after the quarterback. And really the only question for the Rams at that point was whether or not they're going to have their special teams unit kind of get, not good, because it's still not good, but not terrible. And that's kind of what the last piece of the puzzle was. Lose to Carolina. You have a brutal loss against Seattle on Thursday Night Football that goes into overtime. You blew a 16-point lead well into the fourth quarter. Yeah. And then the Atlanta thing happens on Monday Night Football. And I think that's when Rams fans started to ask themselves, what are they good? What happened to this? And then the Arizona game last week in week 18 was a weird game too. For about 2.5 quarters, they did not look like a very good football team. And then like that, it changed. It's like, oh, there it is right there. And so Arizona stinks. So I don't know if it was more that Arizona was a bad team and finally just kind of fell apart at the right time, or whether the Rams finally got fully invested. I cannot wait to see this game, because I don't know what they're going to look like. I'm optimistic that they will be locked in. I think they kind of lost their way a little bit starting in Carolina. I think they took their foot off the gas a little bit. But they certainly don't have the luxury of kind of trying to figure this out all of a sudden. They got to come out and look sharp, because on the road in the playoffs is never easy.
Yeah, and I felt like I knew who that team was, who the Rams were up until that game happened. And certainly the turnovers, which we'll talk about week 13, were a huge factor in that game. It's not like the Rams had any trouble moving the ball up and down the field. It just came down to Matthew Stafford, who set the record for consecutive touchdown passes without an interception, started throwing interceptions in that game, and it completely flipped it upside on its head. And that led to obviously that loss that Sunday. And look, the Panthers honestly owe the Rams, because had they not lost to Atlanta last Monday night, then we're really not having this conversation, because that brought in to play the 3-way 8-9 tie, which Carolina was able to win because of their head-to-head record against the Falcons, who they swept, and the Bucks, who they split with. Had LA won that game, and the Panthers, of course, losing on Saturday, they missed the playoffs. So hopefully Carolina can repay the Rams by beating them yet again. We'll see how that plays out. But I know the feeling here is just that, hey, you're in the dance. You're 0-0 at this point in time. What happened the first 17 games, 18 weeks of the season no longer matters. Can you go out yet again and take advantage of an opponent who you beat back in week 13 when Vegas didn't think you had a chance? And looking at the spread right now at 10.5 points, Vegas also does not buy into you winning this game. And obviously it's a big game for Bryce Young. They gave up so much to go out there and get him. They trade away Christian McCaffrey. They trade away DJ Moore when they moved up to Chicago to get the number 1 overall pick. And these are the moments where a quarterback has to step up and really carry his team. Matthew Stafford's going to be asked to be the catalyst in this game for the LA. Obviously, there's going to be plenty of other players you're going to have to step up. But Josh Allen, they're going to ask him to carry them. Trevor Lawrence, all these quarterbacks at this stage in the game are going to be asked to be the guy that leads them. And can Bryce Young do this? I don't want to use every game as a referendum. I told people that last week, but games like against Tampa, those are the games that you got him to win. These are the games on Saturday in the playoffs that you went up there to get Bryce Young to go out there and win and to play at a high level and give you an opportunity. And we'll see if he's able to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that's one of the things, and you touched on it a second ago, that the Rams have been very fortunate to have over the last 5 years or so, which is there aren't questions about your quarterback. You got the right guy, right? You have a guy that will likely end up in the Hall of Fame. You have a guy that might win an MVP this year. And you have a guy that you've seen execute at a high level at the most important moments when he won a Super Bowl a few years ago. So the question of, do you have the right guy at quarterback for the Rams at least is, yeah, you do. I was struck, kind of speaking about Bryce Young, I don't watch a ton of Carolina Panthers football, and I certainly don't watch them from, the beginning of a game to the end of the game unless they're playing the Rams. And when I saw him a few weeks ago, I'd seen highlights, I'd seen bits, Monday night or Thursday night or whenever they would show up, you see little bits here and there. And I was always kind of like, yeah, Bryce Young, okay. I know he struggled a little bit. And I watched him play against the Rams. I'm like, that guy's really good. Like what am I missing? They benched this guy for why? And then you watch on Saturday night last weekend against the Bucs. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. So I think it's interesting just where these two teams are with their quarterbacks. Obviously, Stafford's been around for a million years. I think you put your finger on it well. That I do think he will be back a year from now, but I don't know what happens after that. We've kind of been on a year-to-year thing with him over the last 2 or 3 seasons, but coming off the way that he's played this year, I mean, if I were him, I'd certainly want to keep playing, and certainly the money available to top flight quarterbacks is hard to walk away from.
Yeah, and the thing is, this, we all know that every year you get a different team. You're going to lose 60% of that locker room. You're going to have the Puka Nakuas, Matthew Stafford's going to be around, Jared Verse, those type of guys, but then you're going to have to cycle in and figure out who could help elevate that team. And knowing how it ended for them last year, where they were down the field in the snow in Philadelphia, looked like they were going to win that game. And that could have been the difference between them losing and winning a Super Bowl. And now you sit here, and I do think the Rams are at least in the best path to get back to the Super Bowl, because you're playing against a Panthers team, granted, that you lost to before, but you're going on the road and playing against Carolina, opposed to had they not played their starters and kind of just punted the game and ended up having San Francisco as the 5 seed and them as the 6 seed. You're talking about going to Philly. Or you could have been talking about going to Chicago, which I think would have been obviously far more favorable than playing in Philadelphia. And if the seeds hold, aside from this game, then the Rams get to go play against Seattle. And who's played Sam Darnold better than this Rams defense?
Yeah, nobody. They've turned Darnold. Darnold had a great not even a great fourth quarter. He had a great half of a fourth quarter and a great overtime about a month ago, and he was really good. But other than that, they've had a pretty good run against Darnold. I think you're right. I think that we've talked a lot about this. My everydayers from Locked On Rams, this will be familiar to them, that if you weren't going to be the number 1 seed, I think the number 5 was actually the best spot to be in, because you get the NFC South, and you're going to get a team that is kind of, like you mentioned, kind of limping into the postseason at this point. Even though the matchup didn't go the Rams' way last time, the Rams have had zero luck against the Eagles. Like you mentioned, last year they came within close, they didn't get it done. They had a weird loss to them this year. They got blown out by them during the regular season last year. The Rams don't typically play well in cold weather. So Charlotte, I know it's not supposed to be great weather, but it's going to be better than Philly. It's going to be better than Chicago. So I think that's an advantage there. And I think there's a real chance, I don't know if I bet a ton on it, but I think there's a chance that all 3 road teams in this opening round win their game. And so there's not a crazy scenario that exists where the Rams are home for the divisional round playing against a team like San Francisco, or, and all of a sudden stuff starts to break a certain way. The Packers got to go to Seattle. The Rams get San Francisco back at home. So as far as the path goes, if you're not going to be the number 1, I think this is the best place to be. I agree with that.
Yeah, that is possible, because Green Bay, I look at playoff experience as mattering. Chicago really doesn't have it. Green Bay obviously has been there the last couple of years with that team that has been young, but it's matured. And then, if San Francisco, they lost Tatum Bethune, if they can find a way to just get over the hump, then it could set up nicely. But Carolina's looking for an upset. And these guys, you don't know what you don't know. There's plenty of guys who actually have been with the Rams, who have a Super Bowl ring in that locker room. Austin Corbett told me when I asked him the other day just about last time you were in the dance, it was with LA. You had won a Super Bowl, and he talked about how you get to permanently etch your name in the history of this game when you win a Lombardi trophy. And there's a lot of guys who are getting a first taste of this postseason who want to be able to get another upset win against the Rams here on Saturday. And you talk about matchups. Did not go the Rams' way last time. It did go the Panthers' way.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Ain't no need to keep talking. We got a game this weekend between the Bills and the Jaguars, and the loser has to go home.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's playoff time, and it's a big opportunity for the Bills, the smallest market team in the AFC, to head down to Florida and play one of the hottest teams in the NFL.
Yeah, man, don't be trying to steal our motivation and be small market, man. Y'all are blue blood in the NFL. We the ones that everybody's always picking on, dog, and we got to use that motivation for ourselves. Don't be trying to steal reasons for y'all to be all pissed off at us.
You get to be the home underdogs, man. I got to cling to the smallest market thing. The Bills, the Buffalo market, 24% smaller than Jacksonville. You know, it's a big stage for Buffalo.
Yeah, it is a pretty big stage. Last time y'all came down here, my wife said, "Look, we live in the South. Why are their trucks so dirty?" I said, "Baby, their trucks aren't dirty. That's salt. That's because of snow. They drive through snow, and you don't want to be washing that stuff because it's gonna come right back on you." And they came down here and took over a wing spot over here in one of these real good neighborhoods and said that they conquered Jacksonville. Let them know, Joe, that if they come back this time, I got some spots. That might not go too well if they come back down here, but let's just go.
Hey, tell your guys to hold on to their tickets, man. Don't sell them. Go to the game. Go to the game, man.
In Duval, man, they always looking for a way to fleece somebody out of some money, man. But let's get to this game, man. Big storyline is the Jaguars are underdogs, but if you look at them, and I know you're a tape guy, you're big in NFL scouting, and you really watch tape. In my opinion, the Jacksonville Jaguars, in terms of balance with offense, defense, and special teams, they're the hottest team and the most complete team in these playoffs, if you ask me.
Yeah, Jaguars look good, man. There's no doubt about it. 8 in a row, throwing the ball well, stopping the run, getting takeaways on defense. They're obviously exceptional with the kicking game, punter and kicker. They got dynamic kick returner, dynamic punt returner. It's a really good operation. You got innovative young coaches on both sides of the football, and here they are, 13-4, won the South, right? 5-4 to 13-4. They're hot. They're absolutely hot, and it's an impressive outfit. And look, you and I have talked a lot about the Jaguars through the years. It's never been about talent. They've had a lot of good football players. They got the coaching staff right, and they're playing good ball.
This alignment thing, and I know it's a word that now I used to use it all the time, but now it really is. People going to probably get alignment fatigue. You know how people wear things out, but it looks like that's a big deal these days because, like you mentioned, and people thought I was like a big Trent Baalke hater, the guy that got fired as the GM. I didn't really dislike Trent as far as his talent procurement. As you look at it, you can see in Dallas, anybody can draft people. Team building is totally, totally different. And I know that's right in your wheelhouse when you want to talk about how to build a staff and how the coach and the GM all have to be in alignment. That's really what it is here. Give me your thoughts on it from the outside looking in with the Jaguars. That alignment looks like it's working pretty good, and it's going to be a copycat thing around the NFL.
Well, there's no question. And I think the winding path to get here was obviously very interesting where the commitment to Baalke, and then Cohen's coming, he's not coming. Baselli gets involved, but I think you can zoom out. James Gladstone, of course, a big part of this operation, and you could feel that alignment. And I've really enjoyed, just as a fan of football, the content that the Jaguars YouTube has put out, kind of going through those stories and behind the scenes stuff. I'm a sucker for all that stuff, and I really enjoyed it with Jacksonville. And I didn't know how it was going to go. Things started looking a little goofy, man. I think anybody could realize that. But then even the Travis Hunter trade, I'm like, really, this is kind of nuts. But then you just kind of saw it come together. Two huge trades. Let's be honest about it. The Jacoby Myers trade, the Greg Newsome trade, getting really good fits for the schemes that they want to run, and then just optimizing the talent. And you saw really coming out of that overseas trip, this team really find itself and play good football. They are aligned. You could tell there's a lot of energy. There's confidence, and I get it. I mean, it's something that they've earned here this year, and very quickly went from, a team that nobody can really figure out what's going on to, here it is. Here's the vision. And I think it does speak to an organizational alignment.
Yeah. So on Locked On NFL, we use clips from local experts, and I'm always pulling Joe Marino clips. So I know one of the things that you have talked about all year is the lack of defense with the Buffalo Bills. Something I'm going to press you on a little bit. I'm going to ask you about that because I think you're absolutely right. With no Joe Burrow, with no Lamar Jackson, and the big one is Patrick Mahomes, is there pressure now on quarterback Josh Allen to actually perform this year and get over the hump? It seems like it's natural that it would happen because there are no obstacles, or at least there are no familiar obstacles in his way.
Yeah, that's such an awful talking point, in my opinion. If you're talking about the Bills' playoff failures, let me tell you who has nothing to do with it. It's Josh Allen, who's probably, respectfully, maybe the greatest statistical quarterback the postseason has ever seen, the greatest touchdown to interception ratio, the most touchdowns per game ever by a quarterback in the playoffs. So the Bills not getting over the hump really has a lot more to do with that defense that has been dreadful in those elimination games against Patrick Mahomes and against Joe Burrow. And so, yeah, I guess you could look at it and say those guys aren't in there, and this is a really ripe path for the Buffalo Bills. But at the same time, I think this has probably been the worst Bills team since they've had the glow up of an upper echelon team, which really kind of happened back in 2020, 7 straight playoff appearances. They've won a playoff game in each of the last, 5 years, they've won at least one playoff game. They're a battle tested team, but this team doesn't really feel like the best version that we've seen. And there's been a lot of highs and lows, certainly a very capable rushing offense, the best in the league. But can the passing offense find consistency? Do they have the weapons to really maximize what Josh Allen can do defensively? They've played a lot better down the stretch, but do they have the pass rush? Can they stay healthy in the postseason, right? Like the Bills have been really unfortunate with defensive injuries, like in playoff games, losing Christian Benford, losing Matt Milano, losing key players. And so I understand the idea that, no Mahomes, no Burrow, Josh Allen, you're the guy. But, I mean, come on. We're smarter than this, right? Football's the ultimate team sport. It's a lot bigger than Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen will do his part. Hopefully the rest of the operation can as well.
Yeah, I used to always beat them up for trading to the Chiefs, allow the Chiefs to get Patrick Mahomes. And a guy here in Jacksonville, Brian Sexton, a long time, used to be the voice of the Jaguars broadcast. He told me, and he told me this before it was obvious. He said, "Oh no, them people in Buffalo ain't mad about Patrick Mahomes. They love that kid." I'm like, "Josh Allen, you crazy, man? You're talking about Patrick Mahomes." He's like, "Wig, trust me." So when somebody is in the know like that and they tell you, I had to pause a little bit on that. Buffalo traded the picks, got the picks and traded the pick to Kansas City so Kansas City could take the dude that's going to beat them forever. But no, it's actually true. I actually believe Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the NFL, and that doesn't come with any labels or any disclaimer. No, he is better, in my opinion, than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, those are your words. I certainly believe it as well. Especially lately, I think Patrick Mahomes has been a little bit removed from playing his best football. But yeah, I mean, look, the stage is set for Josh Allen, but he's also playing through a foot injury. No matter what you hear from Josh Allen or Sean McDermott, it's a big deal. He is battling through this, and I worry about how that limits his mobility, which I think is a huge part of who Josh Allen is. And, I think he's going to have to play his best football, of course, on Sunday and throughout the playoffs if the Bills are going to get this done to kind of overcome some of what this team lacks otherwise.